So the lesson application for lesson 2.7 is about assessing whether a regression model is appropriate and also a couple of other features. So this one is about batteries. Do higher priced tablets, so like iPads or Kindles, have better battery life? And it says, can you predict the battery life of a tablet using the price? So meaning, if the price of the tablet is more expensive, does that mean the battery life is going to last longer? Using data from a sample of 15 tablets, the least squares regression line is y hat equals 4.67 plus 0.0068x. This was calculated using x as price. X, of course, is the explanatory variable, and y, which is the response variable, equaling battery life in hours. And the residual plot is drawn in here. And so with this line that you see right here, okay, you are supposed to look as to whether or not the regression model is appropriate. Now, again, this is using a scatter plot that is a residual scatter plot. So it's like a line of regression that calculates the variability or the residuals, okay? So what you should be able to see here is that this line is kind of right in the middle, okay? There's a couple of values, there's some values above, there's some values below, but in general, this line right here, it's kind of like equal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's about 7 above that residual scatter regression line, and there's about 7 below, a little bit more. So since there's kind of an equal amount there, we don't have quite as much to worry about in terms of whether or not this is an appropriate model. It's clear that it is. And so we're going to say, because there is no leftover pattern. Here's what I mean by that. If there was a pattern in the numbers, like for example, let's say it went like this, okay? Or let's say that the dots were, let's see, up here, and then they all went like this, and there was a bunch more dots there, then that would not be an appropriate model, okay? So we're looking for, basically we're looking for equal scattering is what we're looking for, okay? Because there's no leftover pattern, the least squares regression line is an appropriate model. For relating battery life to the price. All right, now 2 more things. Interpret the value S equals 1.21 for this model. That is the standard deviation of the explanatory variable, so the H, okay, the hours. So this is standard deviation. So what does that mean for this model? Well, if the value of the standard deviation is 1.21, that is 1.21 hours. So we would say the actual battery life of a tablet is about 1.21 hours away from its predicted battery life. And that could be in either direction, higher or lower, okay, depending upon the variability of each individual point on the scatter plot. It could be about 1.2 hours away from its predicted battery life, higher or lower. Okay? And then the last one is to interpret R squared. Remember that R squared is really the percentage, okay? The percent difference or the percent reduction in the sum of the least square, the sum of the squared residuals, okay? So it's the percent of the variability in the response variable that is accounted for by the least squares regression line. So all you have to do is take that decimal and move it 2 places to turn it into a percent. So all we would say is 34.2% of the variability in battery life is accounted for by the least squares regression line. With the explanatory variable being the price. So not that great of a prediction is what we're saying. If only 34.2% of the variability is accounted for by the price, then that means that there's other factors playing a role in that, in the variability of battery life. Maybe it is how long the applications run for. Maybe it is the maybe how much power the individual apps are taking into effect or are using. So there's not a really strong, basically a strong correlation between the two, okay? Obviously, they're going to charge more if their battery life is good, but that doesn't affect whether or not the battery actually lasts. So not a very strong percentage of the prediction of the variability. Okay, so hopefully that'll get you started on your lesson 2.7 practice problems and your homework.